thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and thank you, Mars, for coming to speak to me. My name is Rosie May, and I'm the founder of All Mixed Up, which is a brand that celebrates the beauty of mixed heritage, and it also does anti-racism and anti-discrimination work through social media and just general media campaigns. So I put these events together with Norfolk Black History Month to just kind of highlight some issues that have definitely become prominent in this year of all years, 2020. So there's this event, which is about words. We had an event a couple of weeks ago about Dance of the African Diaspora and how that is represented in the European theatre and dance industry. That's available on YouTube, and there are a couple of YouTube series available as well. So, Mars, would you be able to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and how cool you are?
How cool I am. Try and tell my children that. So my name is Mars Lord. I'm Mars like the planet, not like the chocolate, not very sweet. More the god of war, god of thunder, passionate planet. I am a coach, a doula educator, a birth activist, a health innovator, a disruptor of it's the best way to put it, of the taken for granted and the assumed. I talk to people about cultural competence and cultural safety, and basically my biggest passion, one of my biggest passions, is to close the gap in disparities between Black women and their white counterparts in the perinatal period. So anything from conception through the postnatal period, where studies show, and the number is increasing, in a 5-time white women to die in childbirth and in the perinatal period. But before anyone freaks out, the number of mortalities is low. It's just that within that figure, for Black women, it's 5 times more likely to happen. For Asian women, it's twice as likely. And for women, for birthing people of mixed heritage, you are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth.
Oh, good. I'm excited.
So yes, so that's sort of me. I do a lot of things. I speak a lot, chat a lot, and I'm very passionate about making sure that Black women, Black birthing people survive.
Mm-hmm. No, you sound extremely qualified. I mean, perhaps overqualified to be speaking to me on this subject, but I'm glad that I've managed to get you in and invite you in to speak to me. I really appreciate it. So I've had a couple of questions sent in, and I've written some myself. And if you guys that are watching have any questions at all, then there's a question and answer section, but you're more than welcome to just put them in the chat. We'll get to them as we go through. So today's event is to talk about words, but specifically words used to describe Black and brown people, words that have, I don't want to say racist words, but words that talk about race and are used in conversations about race. So there's like a whole spectrum of things that we can talk about today, and we'll probably get to speak about like this much of it. But I wanted to start by something that's definitely been happening a lot this year, a lot on social media, and it can be difficult to navigate, perhaps in in-person interactions, but something called, being called out. Maz, this is something that you're familiar with as a phrase?
Yes.
Would you be able to give a quick definition of it, ish?
A quick definition of it. Basically being called to account for the things that you're saying, things that you're doing. So if you're being, certainly, if I think about the phrase called out, it I think comes from where we used to, you know, you used to get called out, right, outside you, we're gonna have a fight. So you're getting called out. But what it means in this context, being called out is, listen, you're behaving in a dangerous way. You're saying some wrong and dangerous things. So I'm just calling it out, pulling attention to it, so that hopefully you see what it is, but that others see what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is the easiest definition.
Yeah. It's an easy, you know, it's a complex idea, because it, you know, things come into it like society, and, you know, in a one-to-one situation, like, should you call someone out, should you leave it, what will the other people around you think of you? So a lot of things come into play about, you know, when it actually happens and choosing to do it. But yeah, I was wondering, because they're not only specific to race, you know, like, you can call people out for many different reasons, like, you know, sexism, homophobia, just any kind of hatred, something that, you know, just it's not appropriate and has caused you offense in some way. Then it would be appropriate to call someone out, I'll say in quotations. I was wondering, and you don't have to answer honestly, but I was wondering if
I'll
you...
answer pretty much everything.
I was wondering if you have ever been called out for saying the wrong thing, and if you have, how did you deal with it?
Oh God, yes. I mean, despite being absolute perfection, I do make the occasional misstep. And I remember I said something that I still sort of stand by, but I said it in the wrong place. And actually, it was the kind of thought that should have stayed in my mind. It was an opinion that I had about something that should have stayed in my mind rather than come out of my mouth. Because when it came out of my mouth, it caused hurt and offense. And so I was called out on it. And I mean, I'm 53. I know that there's no point in beating around the bush and looking for excuses and, oh, I'm sorry, you know, the rain clouds opened and therefore I did this. Oh, I was tired and therefore I did that. And I just put my hands up and said, you're absolutely right. What I said was inappropriate. I shouldn't have spoken it. I shouldn't have done it. And I just want to apologize wholeheartedly. And whatever the censure is, yeah, that's what it is, you know. And so that happened. Oh gosh, the instance I'm thinking about was, you know, just earlier this year.
Okay.
Honestly, 2020 has really messed with my
2020
calendar.
has lasted about a decade.
It has lasted about a decade. So that happened then. And I just think, you know, if you are going to be called out on something, you've got two choices. You can go into defense mode. And I see defense mode a lot, particularly in the work that I do. So when I call people out about the fact that Black women are dying at such great rates, and then they say, yeah, but what about working class women? And I say, whoa, now we're going to stop, because working class doesn't mean white. So you've got far more Black working class people than you do middle class Black people. So we are as one together. And so I call people out and say, you're going to have to stop. And then they say, oh, you know, why do you make us feel bad? Oh, this is terrible. We feel awful. And it's as though somehow calling something out is worse than the act that they did.
Yes.
So let's be specific. Let's be really specific. It seems to be worse to call someone a racist than for them to behave in racist ways.
Yes, absolutely. That's, you know, that's what's been coming into my mind. Even today, I saw something about that, and I saw, you know, how shocked people will act that they've been possibly called a racist, or, you know, they've had to be called out. The thing that was interesting about what you said is in regards to, you know, you stated a fact about childbirth, and you you know, you have facts to back up your statement, and this is how you feel about it. You feel strongly that black women are not treated you know, in a similar manner. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm getting my point across. And to white women in midwifery. However, his response was, yeah, but, and just me going, no matter what the topic is, if someone comes to me and says, this is a thing, you know, I feel uncomfortable that this has been said, you know, I don't completely agree with what you said, you know, it upsets me, it's offended me, I would just, you know, like you demonstrated that you did, put my hands up and be like, I'm sorry. Like whether or not I thought it was right, you know, I don't want to cause upset to someone else because I'm not a nasty person. And I feel like it's become quite confusing, especially with a larger wave of people calling people out, especially on social media, that, you know, people just put up their defense straight away, and that is then hard to navigate. You kind of don't know what to do in that situation.
And we have to think about why people are calling others out. You see, one of the reasons why people are getting upset about cancel culture and being called out is there are some people who simply do it just for the sport.
Yeah.
Or they go hunting for something. Let me go and find you. Oh, right, you've said therefore you're a transphobe, therefore you're a racist, therefore you're a... When someone has made a statement, and instead of giving them a moment or giving them an opportunity to learn and reflect, they go in for the jugular. And so, yes, so people get really defensive. We all get defensive if we feel that someone's attacking us. But it doesn't mean that calling people out is wrong, but it does matter what it is that you hope to achieve by it. So if you're calling someone out, whose benefit is it for? Is it for your benefit so that you can be edgy and you can call yourself an ally? Or is it because something dangerous is happening and it needs to be called out and stopped? So who benefits? Is it you that will benefit, or is it the person you're calling out? Will they benefit? And the hope is that the person you're calling out will benefit, because they'll think, whoa, maybe they didn't realize they were doing it, or maybe they knew they were doing it, they just didn't realize the harm it was causing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not one for pussyfooting around the issues and trying to make everybody feel really nice, because I come from an industry and a world, the birth world, where the word kind is used to silence and erase black women all the time. So I mentioned earlier that it seems to be worse to be called a racist than to be a racist. So when someone says or does something racist and you call them out on it, there's a flood of sort of fragility and tears and discomfort that all comes couched in the, you should be kind, there's a kinder way to say this, and that's toxic kindness.
Yeah.
Because that's about silence and erasure. That's not about kindness. Surely the act of kindness is to step up and say, whoa, that's racist behavior.
Yeah.
That's transphobic behavior. That's disablest behavior, whatever it is. Surely the kindness is to stand up for the person who is being harmed and damaged, rather than worry about the fact that the perpetrator is sat there maybe crying. And honestly, the tears come so quickly and so easily for so many things. It's like, let me make you feel better.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing in the world is that you should feel uncomfortable because someone has mentioned that black women are dying. So it's far more upsetting that you're upset than black women are dying. I don't have time for that kind of toxic kindness.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot about, you know, because they're going away from the issues, saying, oh, there's a better way you could have said it, you could be kind, blah, blah, blah. And it's stuff that I've seen it a little bit as well. But yeah, like you say, I feel like the kind of thing, if anyone has to be, you know, kind in that situation, it's the person that has done the act that is harmful, and they need to, you know, have their moment of, oh, you know, I've just been called out on something that's really upset me, I'm feeling so uncomfortable, blah blah blah. Have that moment and then address it and move on from it. That's kind of how I feel about it. And I've been called out on a couple of things. I can't remember entirely what they are, but you know, I'm 22 and I do a lot on the internet. There's so much going on. Someone is going to say something to me one time and say, no, you shouldn't have said that. And that's just how things work. And I remember the first couple of times it happened, I was like, goodness me, I can't believe this has happened to me, blah blah blah, you know, everyone hates me. And then like after a couple of times you just kind of, okay, in that situation that wasn't appropriate to say that. Speaking for example, things like you know, different terminology to describe different groups of people, for example, Indigenous people, Native Americans, that battle with the terminology. I don't fully understand it. And I think some people prefer one term, some people prefer another term. I used a wrong term at one time, and that's fine. Someone told me about it. I said, oh, okay, I won't say it anymore. And I feel like sometimes that's really as simple as it should be. But it's obviously not always. I was wondering if you've ever had to call out a family member on something that they've said.
Yes, actually. Oh gosh, wow. There's a memory from the annals of the past. So oh, he's not likely to see this, and none of his family are likely to see, so it doesn't matter. My ex-husband is white.
Okay.
And we were watching the news one day, and it said that 4 men had shot in a car in Finsbury Park. 4 black men had been shot in a car in Finsbury Park. And he said, it's drugs. This is instant. And I said, why do you say it's drugs? And he goes, well, it's going to be, isn't it? Black guys, it's going to be. So I had to call him out on that and say, well, hang on. You're married to me and we have 5 children and your children are black. So you have to think about the words that you're saying, but not only think about the words that you're saying, you got to think about where it comes from. So there's a verse in the Bible that says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So I don't take the, oh, well, they were drunk, they said this, oh, well, they were tired, oh, well, they weren't thinking. Those are just surfaced excuses for, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth is speaking. This is stuff that they believe within themselves. So I had to call him out on that. But when we think about calling people out, and I am doing it a lot at the moment, in one of the groups that I frequent, we talk about calling people in. So you call them out and then you call them in. I'm calling out your bad behavior. I'm calling out the way you misspoke. I'm calling out the way that you're dealing with this. But I'm calling you back in as well, because I'm saying, come, let's learn, let's sit together, let's know this, let's understand this, let's move forward.
That's really interesting. I've not come across that at all.
I think it was just something that someone in one of my groups said, and it was just so brilliant and so apt, I felt. But so many people just get defensive. Who wants to be wrong? Who wants to be seen as wrong? They get embarrassed, so they double down, and then they double down again, and then they double down again, and then they double down again, and all of a sudden they've painted themselves into a corner and they can't come out without fearing that they'll look foolish, because we're so afraid of looking foolish, rather than saying, okay, I screwed up, I'm sorry. But we're not responsible for other people's thoughts. We're only responsible for our own thoughts.
Yeah, well, this is something I was just looking at the next question, and it is it our responsibility to educate people who use words incorrectly, or do we prioritize our own mental health by not engaging? Now, firstly, I have you know, kind of signed in to this lifestyle of activism. So on a daily basis, I kind of have accepted that I will be using my knowledge and the ideals that I hold to help educate people. And if that involves you know, educating someone that has said something slightly wrong, then that is what I will do. However, I chose to do that. I I don't know if that is necessarily everybody's like, is it every woman's responsibility to be telling every man who said something slightly wrong, something like that? And the same for gay people to homophobic people. You know, because we have to kind of, in my opinion, like prioritize our own mental health. Like if it gets to the point, it's like 11 o'clock at night and people are still, you know, trying to attack you, and you know, it's hard to put that kind of front on, and the educator. And I feel like sometimes as Black women, it is assumed that we are there and we are ready to do the educating, and I don't necessarily agree with that.
It has always been that way. Tell me how to stop oppressing you. Tell me how to stop offending you. Tell me how to change the systems and structures that are designed to benefit me and harm you. Tell me, what can I do about it? We know where the power lies. So the people with the power are the ones who have to make the changes, who have to ask the hard questions of themselves. But when it comes to talking to someone and correcting a misstep, a misword, or very deliberate untruths, it just changes any given day, any given moment. You know, I'm an activist too, and I'm quite happy to tell people that I'm not prepared to listen to your shit. And you will not silence and raise me because you feel uncomfortable with what I say. But I also have days when I just think, yeah, just on you go, Sonny. Take yourself out. Love it when the trash takes itself out and they walk off my social media and the pages because I won't engage, and then take themselves off my social media. I love it when the trash takes itself out. It's not my responsibility to educate everyone I come up against, because we're adults and we should be able to do our own form of self-education. And I'm not being funny, but Google is your friend. There are so many articles, there are so many. Mars, tell me how you've been discriminated against. I'm not going to sit down and engage in Black trauma porn with you. I'm not going to sit there and keep telling you these stories. When you see these stories, you see these things time and time again. But basically, you just want to be a voyeur and you just want to get your rocks off to Black trauma, which is why I call it Black trauma porn, because what is it that you're doing? You're sitting there going, oh, that's awful. That's awful. Oh, that's awful. That's awful. Stop saying it's awful and get off your ass and do something to change it, to stop it from being awful. Sometimes you're going to have the energy, and even you, my darling Rosie, who says that you've chosen this work of activism,
I don't always have the energy.
Say no.
Yeah,
exactly, because you're 22. Do you know one of the reasons why Black people are more prone to hypertension, high blood pressure, etc., is the everyday racism that they face, this constant stress of just trying to exist in a Western white world that doesn't want them. That constant trying, code switching, changing what you say because of the room that you're in, deciding not to hear the racist comment, the racist joke, trying not to hear the passive, aggressive, toxic kindness that goes on. And you spend so long dodging these bullets and navigating the gaps that no wonder we grow and we're more likely and more prone to have hypertension and sort of medical conditions that just build within us. Because, as my coach said today, we are, as Black people, we are only allowed to be human doings. We're not allowed to be human beings. We're not allowed to be in our emotions. We're not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to be angry. We're not allowed to do anything except for smile like a pickaninny and take whatever is given to us, you know? So we have to prioritize our own mental health. Do you know that Black people are far more likely to be sectioned? Black people are far more likely to go under a psychiatrist's care and not be released from a hospital than a white person with the exact same issues. So we are expected to do, but we are not allowed to be. So sometimes there's no point in, why argue with someone that just wants an argument?
Yeah.
I don't like having a bloodied head. You see that brick wall? Look, we've talked about it for a couple of minutes. You have made it clear that whatever I tell you, you are going to come back and tell me again and again and again why I'm wrong. So let's just walk away from each other. One, because I don't look good in prison orange. I mean, I probably do, but I don't look good in prison orange. And two, it's a brevity of life issue. You know, I've got happiness and joy and thriving to be getting on with. I can't be locked down in this dark corner and alley with someone that has absolutely no interest in me as a human being. So for me, and this is what my coach told me today, and it was like, oh my God, mind blown. She said, Black, being a human being is a revolutionary act. So we've got to take care of ourselves. Sometimes we'll do the educating, but actually there's enough information. We don't need to educate. We can simply say, please don't use that language around me. Why not? It offends me. Why is it offensive? Trust me.
Yeah.
Google is your friend. There are 1,000,001 blog posts. Someone's once said to me, oh, you can't quote blog posts. And I said, they are people speaking and people's opinions. So is this your snobbery that it only matters? It's only correct if it's a PhD or if the nice lady says it. There's plenty of information out there. Plenty of information.
A word, just to completely change the subject, a word that I brought up in my, so I have a YouTube series called Black Words Matter. And I brought up a word which is ghetto, and I was wondering if you could share some thoughts on it, how you feel about it.
Oh my goodness, Rosie. I mean, how long are we chatting for today? How do I feel about the word ghettos? Ghetto means that place of poverty, the place with no hope, the place with no rising, the place with poor sanitation, the place with no food, the place with no decent clothes on your back, no shoes on your feet. Ghetto is a place of poverty. Look at the words that are used to describe Black people. Or no, look at the words that they use to describe what white people are doing when they take on Black culture. Oh, she's so ghetto, she's so urban. Oh, and then look at what the words actually mean. So I read on an estate agent's website once. I couldn't believe they said it because I'd read it in a magazine, so I went onto their website and they really did say it. And they said, you know, move to this area. Let's say, I think the area was somewhere like Brixton, but it's like here on these quiet, lovely streets, but just down the road is all the urban experience you'll want. And it's like, wait, what does urban mean? Urban doesn't mean city and town. Urban is code for, that's where the Black people are. So, you know, stay in this nice leafy area, but just around the corner, you can dabble in the urban. It's like the word exotic. Oh, Rosie, you're an exotic looking woman.
Oh gosh, I mean, if I had £1 for how many times I've been called exotic, like, I'm not a fruit. That's kind of where I go with that.
Yeah, that's the word of the colonizer. exotic, strange, different, something that we never really often see. Oh, that's unusual. I've gone and travelled the world from my 3 square miles and I'm seeing something different, and oh, that's exotic. That's code for, gosh, black, aren't you?
Yeah.
But just in case you feel insulted by me calling you black, I'm just going to let you know that I think you're pretty and black.
Yeah.
Therefore, you're exotic.
A word you keep mentioning is code, and something that I didn't know, and I still don't know too much about it. So, is coded language, and there's a couple of things like code switching. You mentioned earlier is one thing, and I think that's what Black people do. We'll get onto that. But coded language is, I guess, kind of some of the words we were just bringing up now, and certain people high up in politics that maybe run a country across the pond use coded language in order to speak negatively about
Oh,
groups.
sweetie, let's be honest. It's not just the occupant across the pond that does it.
No.
It's not just the higher. It's people, full stop.
Yeah.
Oh, you're all right. You're not like them. All of these words are innocent words. All of these words are strung together within a code,
Yeah.
within an intonation that means you are other.
Mm-hmm.
You are not like me. Things like normal. What does normal mean? When there's an advert on the TV at the moment with a black woman shopping in Tesco's, what does Twitter say? Why do we have to see, is this Black Lives Matter gone mad? Why can't we just see normal families on the telly? I'm sorry, but we are normal. Oh, wait, no, we're other because our skin is a different shade and we are not white. Therefore, we are not normal. That's coded language.
Yeah.
Why can't we see more white people on the TV is what they want to say. But they don't say those words because someone might, as we talked earlier, call them out on it. So they use coded language. They talk about you being exotic because that's coded language. Just to remind you how you're not normal. This is how we other people. Why can't we just have normal families? What's a normal family? Well, my family's a normal family, your family's a normal family, and yet our families are very different from each other. This is normal. It's not this tiny, narrow, my brain, my privilege, my right to be on top only allows me this tiny, narrow image. So coded language is simply about reminding you do not belong.
Do you think that certain things that happen in coded language, I think some people realize and some people don't realize, but I can't necessarily imagine, and I'll say exotic, maybe it's not a good example, but someone using that word when exotic is the word used to describe Black people, but also people of mixed heritage, because we're Black, but we're lighter, so we're closer to white. It's more appealing to have Eurocentric features. Yeah. So we're like a little bit exotic. Words like that, I feel like they are the words to use to describe people like us, and therefore if you grow up using those words, it isn't until you start, I feel like it isn't until you have that moment where someone says, why have you called me exotic? Then they actually realize and go, oh, maybe. And I think some people use it maliciously. And I think some people just don't think. And it's a lack of education around these topics that make them use it.
or is it an internalized narrative?
Mm-hmm.
So what I've discovered through studies is that single parent families in this country are more likely to be headed up by white people. And yet black mothers are demonized for being single mothers. I was at a fertility fest and festival, and this guy just said to me, white guy said to me out of nowhere, well, your lot, the fathers never stick around. There's a narrative, you see it in the stories, you see it in the films, you see it in the movies, in the TV programs that rarely show black fathers, black families together. TV adverts, until incredibly recently, like literally weeks ago, the families, if you see a black person in a family, it's always within a white family. If you see an Asian person within a family, it's all. I watched one advert that really just riled me, because there was a mixed mum with a white dad and a mixed daughter with her white boyfriend. And it's like, there just can't be any darkness. We can't have too much darkness. The black woman that walks through Tesco's upsets everybody. But it's a narrative. It's a societal narrative. It's a narrative that we've grown with, and this is why people are uncomfortable when they're called out, when we talk about words, because they suddenly have to think, this thing that I have always thought that I didn't realize was a problem is a problem. And that is where the issue comes. That's where the difference comes.
Yeah, it's hard because we can all see that it's it's ingrained in society and in people's vocabulary, just in the way they are, and that is really hard to combat, especially if they come from a genuine place. And but yeah, it's something I haven't completely mastered, because, like, for example, in a dance and musical theatre context, I, just for a second, just take a look at me and take that into consideration. I will get asked to act more ghetto, more black, more bougie, and I'm just like, what I don't get what you're asking me to do, because
I am black.
And then it comes on to, they're asking me to be this caricature that doesn't exist, and it's but they're not saying, I don't know, they're not saying, hey, can you be this like caricature of a stereotypical black person, like in the black and white minstrel shows, because there'd be a problem if they said that. So I feel like, again, it's that
explicitly.
Yeah, but it's that coded language.
And so that's the stuff that needs to be called out. And I say to people, you're going to have to explain to me what you mean. You know what I mean? No, I don't know what you mean. And then I wait. And then I wait. Because they know what they're asking. They know what they're saying. They just want us to smile like a pickaninny and just accept it. And, if I had a pound, if I had a penny, for every time someone said something racist to me and someone white beside me said, no, they don't mean it like that, I would be a multi-millionaire, and that's with a penny. It's not even with a pound. So now I just look at them and I say, you're going to have to explain that to me. And then I wait. Because people do know what they say.
When it's like that, there's a reasoning behind them coming out with that statement, and that's because they want me to act in a certain way. And
yes, so they know what they say, and it doesn't make their reasoning right. How can somebody tell you to act more black? Are you not already black? You are a beautiful mixed heritage woman. You have your blackness inherently with you. How can you be more black than you actually are? What does it mean to be more black? It's a racist stereotype. Call it what it is. You're 22, I'm 53, I'm over being nice to people about this stuff.
Because
It's a
interesting
racist stereotype.
if you asked them, for example, can you act more white? Like, I don't know what they would do in that situation, in an audition situation. And
maybe you should try that.
I have started, questions that get asked to me that make me feel uncomfortable, I start spinning them back on the person that asked me, and they're like, oh, good question, and then we move on quickly after that. But yeah,
yes, because they can't sit in this.
No, not at all. Well, Mum came up with a question earlier, but I also had it asked as well. Is how do you feel about the term BAME, BAME?
Oh, shoot me now. That is a term made up by white people to talk about everyone that's not white British.
Mm-hmm.
BAME.
That
Black,
small
Asian,
group of
minority,
everyone
ethnic.
else.
Yeah. It's a term that says you are other. I'm not going to call you by your name. The reason BAME annoys me is because so many people use it to draw down funding, to draw down attention and information, and they're calling it down for the black, but they actually want it for the minority ethnic. BAME means black, brown, white, not British.
Mm-hmm.
That's what BAME means. When we talk about, so let's go back to the work that I do, when we talk about the fact that black women are 5 times more likely to die in childbirth, BAME women are 5 times more likely to die in childbirth, it's black women. Why can't we say what we mean?
Yeah.
Why do we have to use the language that makes the colonizer, the oppressor, feel happy and comfortable? Being black is a political act. Just being. I mentioned it earlier. They want us to do, they don't want us to be. So in answer to your mum, your lovely mum, hate it. Absolutely hate it. And for those people that I don't understand why you hate it, Miles, let me tell you this very simple phrase that you may hear from me a few times. Google is your friend. Google why is BAME a problematic term, and you will find reams of work about it. It's used to other us.
Definitely. And it's something that I find it all the time in the performing arts industry. Everything is BAME, just BAME this, BAME that. We're open to BAME applicants. And the first time it kind of it seeped into my consciousness without me knowing. I was like, oh yeah, BAME. And my mum was going, no, I'm not comfortable with that. And my friend was going, we're not comfortable with that. And and then more recently, like in the last year or so, I was thinking, okay, hang on, they mean, everyone that isn't white British, and they're grouping us all into this one little box. And they're doing it, they put it on their like funding applicants, like, oh, we will, we're looking specifically for BAME applicants, and it just feels like it comes part and parcel with ticking a box, and that's all it's there for.
Yes, because actually they don't need to bring in the black and brown people. They've said BAME, so now they can stick to as light. So colorism comes into it. They can go as light as they like, as long as that white person that they've chosen is within a BAME box, the BAME box. And it's a phrase, it's a term that I hope we lose very, very soon. And people keep saying, well, I can't not use it because this is the language funders know. And I'm like, well, if you're going to use it once, and then talk about who you're drawing your funds down. Are you drawing funds down for black people, for brown people? If you're not, stop pretending that you are by using BAME. You're using BAME to open pockets and get some money. You're not actually thinking about the people that you're bringing in with you.
Speaking about the terminology that we're using to describe ourselves and describe other brown people, the question was broader, but it was, how do we get rid of fear and stigma around words? But I'd put in brackets, people being afraid to say the word black, for example. I had a person, an acquaintance in my life, not wanting to talk about black people. And so the phrase she chose to use, in amongst other racist ramblings, was black coloured people. And that made her feel better, because she didn't want to say black people. I don't want to say black people. I don't want to say white people. But she put the word coloured in there.
Neutral, and then we colour them in.
Yeah.
To make them different. We colour them in to make them different. Look, say the word you're going to say. If someone is offended by it, they'll tell you, then change the word and don't use that word again. I know black people that have got no problem with the term BAME.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I know black people who've got no problem with the term, people of colour. I didn't used to have a problem with it, and then one day I thought, actually I do. I'm a black woman. When you call me a person of colour, what you're doing is somehow you are making me other.
Yeah, just an extra
Call me
bit.
black. I'm quite happy to be called black. Yeah, and if I don't like being black, I'll say, actually, I don't like being called black. I prefer to be called a person of colour. So how hard is it? And when we say people are upset and worried, who are the people that are upset and worried? Because it's not the black people, and it's not the brown people. So once again, we are making sure they're not feeling uncomfortable and upset and discombobulated by this all. So we're making sure that the words that we use keep them feeling safe, and therefore they don't change. It's like going abroad and refusing to even master the basic hello, goodbye, please, and thank you in that other country's language, and just speaking English louder and slower and enunciating as though somehow that makes everything all right. Because I'm normal.
Yeah.
I'm here where you are, and what you're doing is not my normality. So I'm going to make your normality my normality. Otherwise, the problem is yours.
Yeah. That's very interesting, especially like the thing about that whole refusal to learn another language, the basic greetings of another language. And it just feels like it's a similar grouping of people that have the same attitudes, that not necessarily, I don't know, I feel like those people don't have I think there's too many groups of people, and they're all just not really doing things right, and it's insane to have to navigate.
Perfect.
Pardon?
Yeah. Other than those that are perfect.
Other than those in this Zoom call right now. But yeah, it's I don't know. Something that came into my mind recently is I was talking about black people and white people, and someone was talking, and I said that sometimes I refer to black people as African people and European people, and someone said, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? What? Just call them what they are. You're black, they're white, I'm Chinese. And I thought, well, hang on, you've got your country, and we've got you're like, if we're talking like African, European, Asian, we can kind of go by continents, we can go by country, English, Nigerian, but it feels like as soon as you kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's harder for some white people to hear me refer to a group of black people as Africans and African people. But I couldn't get my head around the fact that it was black, white, and then everything else is country and continent. And I wasn't sure why that had happened and how that had developed in our terminology.
Because it's about other people. And in fact, everybody, if you look back in history, if you look back at the history of the colonizer, you were either white or black. It didn't matter what shade of melanin you had. It didn't matter if you were Asian, if you were South Asian, if you were, from the African continent. If you weren't white, you were,
was,
and this
yeah.
was everybody. Everybody was black that wasn't white European. And the narrative remains. And I mean, let's look at, so that just recently we saw that Comic Relief are no longer sending white celebrities out to Africa, and Comic Relief are no longer going to be showing Africa as a continent, though they think of it as a country, with starved children with flies in their eyes. I mean, the power of the film Black Panther that a lot of white people struggle to go and see, and then a fair number didn't go and see, was that what Black Panther did was show Africans as prosperous and thriving, and it goes against the narrative we know, that black people are stupid, that Africans are poor. We know these things because this is what the books and the films and the newspapers continually tell us, and so it really comes against that. But I'm trying to do something good for the poor brown babies, the black babies, as though somehow the parents of these children are incapable of doing without. Because there's poverty all across the world. There's poverty in Europe, as well as Africa and Asia. There's poverty everywhere. But why is it that the African continent and the Asian continent or Indian continent are portrayed as poverty stricken?
Yeah.
We never look at the amazing things. We distill it all down to one, because we only feel good if someone else is worse.
Yeah, it's those kinds of things that have been, you know, built into our society now, that it's Comic Relief Day and we watch all this, like these amazing acts, and then we watch the poor, sad African children and how sad they are, and without noticing, that is a mindset that gets just, you know, ingrained into our ourselves, our society. And then, I'm not speaking personally, obviously, and then that, you know, that affects when we're having these conversations about black people, and without noticing, you're putting those ideals that have been fed to you into these conversations, even though they're not correlated, because we're talking about how do you want to be Mars referred to, as, you know, as a British woman who's a doula, all these things. How do you want to be referred to? We're not having a conversation about homeless people like this. They're not on the same level, but because we're all black, it's one group. Just before we finished, I had two questions. One being, what is your most hated word being used to describe you? And how do you prefer to describe yourself as a person? So like as a doula, opposed to, hi, I'm Mars and I'm a black person, like, you know, because that's interesting.
So the word that I despise the most is is being called angry or aggressive. So I talk to people in really measured tones, and just recently I was running a cultural safety workshop, and we were talking about how poorly black people are treated within the maternity system. And this white woman said, "You're so angry. Why are you so angry?" And she spoke like that, and I spoke like this. And then she said, "You're upsetting everybody in the room. You're upsetting everybody. You're just being awful. Why are you so angry and aggressive?" So when a calm, articulate black woman speaks and doesn't center white women or white people, she's angry and she's aggressive. That's not true, Mars. I don't feel like that. I don't think like that. So, okay, let's turn it around this way then. when a woman speaks in a group of men and a man says, oh my goodness, she's a bit of a ball buster, you take umbrage with that. Well, it's exactly the same. It's just that you feel that you have permission to use it against me. So the words that I despise the most are angry and aggressive. However, I do own my anger, because I am angry that Black women are dying at such despicable rates, and that racism is the root cause for it. How would I describe myself as a doula, as a person, as me? Oh, I am unapologetically Black. In my work, in my life, in myself, in all that I do, in all that I am. If you want, you can, ever part of my life you like, and unapologetically Black are the two words that I use to describe myself.
Thank you very much. Maz, do you have anything like coming up, or things that you want to promote, your workshops, of like whatever, anything that you want to share?
Well, if you Google Mars Lord, you'll find me pretty much everywhere. If you're within the birth world and you want me, then you look up Abuela Doula. Abuela is Spanish for grandmother, and as someone who trains doulas, and our name is Abuela Doulas, it's because we believe in bringing the wisdom of the ancestors forward into modern birth. So you can find me under Abuela Doula, and under Abuela Doula find cultural competency workshops, doula training, inclusion work, and consultation. If you go to marslaw.co.uk, then you will find my coaching self and my coaching. So you've got abueladoulas.com and marslaw.co.uk. I love being a coach. I love watching people rise and helping them develop. But yeah, so just Google my name and I just keep popping up everywhere.
I did notice that. I Googled your name a while ago and was like, wow, there's a lot for me to scroll through here. No, it's...
I had this guy say to me once, sorry, he was at a youth group, or he grew up in a group that I used to help at. And then a few years ago, he called me in like absolute horror. He said, my wife is doing some work within and doing some research about birth, and you seem to be famous in the birth world. And I said to him, did you think I was shit at my job? But yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm the quiet one, not in the corner.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone that came. I have oh, there was a question we didn't answer. Adelaide, I will answer that question very shortly. I'm sorry for missing it earlier. I don't really know how to use the question and answer function, even though I recommended you used it. Thank you very much for coming. I'm on all social medias as Rosie May. I also have all mixed up, two ups, on Twitter. On YouTube, I also have Rosie May, and I've been sharing my 2 YouTube series, one about words, very similar to what we've spoken about tonight, in 2-minute, 3-minute little snippets. One more, the last one comes out tomorrow. I also have Our Dance, Our Heritage, which is about dance of the African diaspora. It talks a little bit about the words we use to describe African dance as opposed to European dance, and it also just talks about the Black dance as an industry in the UK. So yeah, thank you very much. I think that's everything I've got to say. If you'd like to stay involved with other events that like this, please let me know. You can join the mailing list for future events and future projects coming up. Yeah, that's all I've got to say.